President Trump and Joe Biden clash in their first debate. Should Australia add more states? And Fred Nile's Christian Democrat Party continues to implode. This is The Arc with Riccardo Bosi. Riccardo, welcome back to the show.
Always a pleasure.
We had a bit of a week off, didn't we?
Yeah, well, our condolences to you and your family for your father's passing, but I hear that despite COVID restrictions, it was a heartwarming event.
It truly was. Thank God we've got online. I don't know what we'd do without it. And this week we're joined by your lovely wife, and also who happens to be the interim chief of staff for the Australia One political party, Rhiannon Bosi. Rhiannon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John.
I'm really looking forward to delving into some of the party matters that have been going on. But firstly, I did want to briefly ask you guys a question on CPAC. It's happening on the 4th of November. Do you guys think you'll end up being there? I think this is a big opportunity for people to get to know you and meet you finally in person with all the restrictions that are going on. Finally, we've got a big event. Can people expect to see you there? Or
it's certainly our intention to be there. I think it's a great opportunity to hear opinions and speakers that the mainstream media doesn't want to give any airtime to, so we intend to be there. It should be a great event. Awesome.
I heard that there are student tickets already sold out, so there's really only 2 or 3 other tiers that people can buy tickets at. But yeah, guys, go check it out. I'll be there. I'll be there with some of the usual troublemakers. I think Romeo Georges might be there, Dougal, Samrat, a few of the others. It'd be great. It'd be great to see you guys there and finally put some names to faces. So our first topic, we had yesterday the debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and it was very fascinating because no one thought this was going to go ahead. I mean, it was a very highly anticipated situation. What were your initial thoughts on that debate?
Frustrated, because there was the major point I got out of it was watching Trump having to play the COVID game, having to defend a position he took for sound reasons, politically let's say, but I just wish they could have fought it differently. In Australia, and certainly in Australia One, we're calling it out for what it is. It's a con. The germ is real. Yes, it does kill, but the response is overblown, and it's just frustrating that unfortunately they couldn't do that in the US. They have a very different psychology there. It's a tinderbox, so Trump has to tread very lightly. Australians are more robust; they can handle the truth, and so it was frustrating. But it was fun watching Sleepy Joe or Creepy Joe, depending on how much you know about the guy, getting it. He almost lost it twice. I think he almost lost his temper once, and he almost lost his train of thought. Once the Biden train gets derailed, it doesn't get back on. But he must be on great meds.
What do you think, Rhiannon? What did you think of the debate?
I have to actually agree with Rick. It was very frustrating. But in saying that, I didn't feel like I didn't feel like the people were actually getting the information that they needed. I understand that they have to debate certain issues, your perspective on this and your position on that and your decision on X, Y, and Z. I didn't get that out of that. It was, with all due respect, it was lame. And it wasn't enough. It really wasn't enough for me personally. Because as Rick says, Trump is having to bat back the common sense issues rather than deep-seated. To me, a debate is, you've got a position and my position is this, and I don't agree with X, Y, and Z. You should have done potentially, these options. And that, to me, I just didn't get enough out of it. So I was disappointed, but that's the scenario over there, and that's what they have to do.
One of the topics they covered was Trump's tax returns, especially with particular focus to 2016, 2017. We've all seen it plastered everywhere, over every meme, over every article. Trump only paid $750 in 2016, 2017. I just wanted to quickly say that is blatantly false. The New York Times reported this story, and the New York Times refuted this story. If you read past the first paragraph or past the title, you would have found that in 2016 he paid $1 million in tax, and then in 2017 he paid $4.2 million. That means he paid $5.2 million. Now, a lot of people, they don't either pay tax or they don't know how to do their taxes themselves, so they don't understand that Trump actually ended up overpaying his taxes, and because of all the various tax write-offs that he had, because his business is losing money. Why? Because he's in the presidential position where people are hammering him the whole time. All of his kids have lost money. Because of that, his businesses are losing money, and of course he's going to have a lot of write-offs, a lot of devaluation happening. And I just wanted to put that out there because no one likes fake news, and no one likes a bully. And unfortunately, Trump is being bullied, and people can see it. People aren't stupid. So I did want to quickly debunk that. Tim Pool covered that really well. He went through the whole article and just refute it because it's absolutely ridiculous. But Riccardo, what is this assault on people speaking truth? What is going on with all of this? Why is there so much to lose for those that are standing up for walking in a straight path?
We're at the tail end of a long and exquisitely executed strategy to control the planet. This is not a conspiracy. All you have to do is read, do your research, and you'll find that they are slowly, and they have been slowly, attacking us. It's an uncomfortable alliance between, say, communists, socialists, bankers, and just the sociopaths like Bill Gates, who need to and want to control the planet. It's just step by step by step. And anybody that gets in their way gets crushed. And you can look at throughout history. And if you want to do some research to see where the nexus between, say, capitalists, and I don't mean capitalism as a valued theory for developing and creating wealth, which underpins a good life, but the sociopathic capitalists. 2 books you should read. I've mentioned them before, I'll mention them again. One's called The Naked Communist by W. Cleon Skousen, the former retired FBI agent who penetrated the US Communist Party in the 50s, and he enumerated the 45 goals of communism. And if you buy the book and read the book, in fact, just go online and Google 45 goals, you can see that they've been working on this for at least half a century or more. Specific goals that they have achieved. The first 10 largely deal with the US, but the remainder they've executed in Australia. Now, to flip the other side, he wrote a book called The Naked Capitalist, which is a review of a book by a character called Quigley, who was singing the praises of the globalist agenda. And so these 2 books will show you and demonstrate very clearly and show you the links between the globalists and the methods they use to control us. And what they're doing now in Australia is exactly that. But they don't want the people to read, they don't want people to know. All they want to do is control us. And that's it. And any one of us is a danger to them. And at first it's the old adage, first they ignore you, then they ridicule you, and then they kill you. And that's what they will do progressively in order to stop anybody that's going to throw this centuries-old agenda into doubt. And that's what Trump is doing. That's what Australia One is doing. Because every political party in this country, bar a couple of individuals in a couple of parties, Malcolm Roberts, for example, One Nation, very bright man, he knows exactly what's going on. He does the work and he knows what's happening. So with a few exceptions, every political party in this country has been bought and paid for by somebody, and they are delivering it to you. And so they can't afford to have that happen, so they will crush anybody, and they will shut them down. They won't let them speak. They won't put them on the air to hear a counter view. They have this ridiculous thing called Festival of Dangerous Ideas in Sydney, and all it does is continue pressing the extreme left narrative. How about, here's a dangerous idea, how about we protect all life? How about we say that life is sacred, regardless of how young or old it is? There's a dangerous idea. It wasn't dangerous a few years ago. That was normal. But that's what they're doing. They've got to shut you down so you can't attack their grab of power.
Have you guys experienced this with A1, Rhiannon?
Bear with me a moment.
Sure.
Just getting back onto with regards to Trump and his taxes. There was an article that I posted on our Facebook the other day. What's his name? Bill Gates Bill Gates has made $200 million out of vaccines alone. Now if you're going to hammer someone about taxes, great, no problem. I've got no problems with that to investigate with regards to taxes, no dramas. But then let's talk about Google, let's talk about Facebook, let's talk about Twitter, let's talk about every single large organisation and corporation. Because what they're trying to do is they're saying, oh my gosh, this is an aberrant behaviour and it's individual, rather than turning around and looking at all of these people who are doing exactly the same thing. Why? Because the system allows for it. It allows for, if you didn't make much money in this year, then you can actually offset it from the previous year. That's where you get a lot of multimillionaires who are using the tax system to offset their own taxes. He was brilliant when he said it. Was it Murdoch or Packer? Can you just enlighten me again what he said?
When Packer was the famous exchange under a parliamentary Senate inquiry.
Yeah, that's funny.
And he said, I shouldn't be, anybody that doesn't minimise, not evade, but minimise their tax is a fool, because it's not like the government's doing good things with it.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. Everyone should minimise tax.
And that's it. Because, and out of all of these people, if you donate 50% of your earnings to charities, guess what? You're not paying a lot of tax that year, because all of that money that you have made and you have actually put to charities is offsetting your income because it's no longer yours. So if you've got a problem with the tax system, have a look at how it's being applied, and have a look over a large percentage of those individuals. And it is still utilised. It's not like it's not available to the common person. It is. It's just the common person can't find someone because they can't afford it to actually do all of this, to offset all of their taxes. So it's not necessarily that the system's corrupted because it's applied to that person. It's that you just simply can't afford someone who knows what they're doing. And that is the fundamental issue. Because everybody could offset their taxes.
Yeah, the joke did go a bit like this. So what you're saying is Trump basically reduced his taxes with the tax code that Joe Biden wrote over the last 47 years. I mean, wake up, guys. This guy, Joe Biden's not someone that's just started out in politics. You know, Trump jokes when he says, "I only ran for public office once and I got the presidency from it." Like he's a funny guy. He's a funny guy. And Joe Biden's been there for 47 years.
Sure.
I just can't see how people don't, like, now he's going to start solving the problems. Like,
after 47 years. And let's have a look at how wealthy all of these politicians are. Let's have a look at their wage. I think in the US it's about $100 and something or other $1,000 US dollars. And yet they're multi-millionaires. How the hell do you think they get to become multi-millionaires? It's not from doing your job. So let's actually investigate all of these individuals, not someone who's using the tax system that they didn't create to actually benefit themselves, and by the way is available to everybody else. Let's look at all of these individuals that have made money, and where the hell has it come from? Because I bet you it's not in their tax statements.
Well, that's why Australia is one of our policies, is we are going to ensure that all examples of unexplained wealth
Correct.
in anybody on the public teat will be examined, because they're going to learn that there's serving the public comes with a cost.
Correct.
yeah.
And I don't care whether it's a Prime Minister or a senior public servant, if anyone's on the public teat and then has unexplained wealth as a result of that, there will be consequences.
Correct.
And that's an excellent segue, guys, because as you guys know, last year me and Samrat got in a little bit of a punch-up with the Christian Democrat Party. And it wasn't with Fred Nile. It wasn't with the man himself. He's done a lot of good work over many decades, and he's fought a hard slog. We can all see that.
Correct.
He's been a very integral part of the Christian movement in Australia and New South Wales. However, last year, Samrat and I were presented with what we called irregularities in matters that the board would deal with and certain individuals dealt with on the board. And basically I presented those to the board. There was 11 of them that we could prove, which just skimmed the surface. And some of these included hundreds of thousands of dollars of illegal payments. Sue me, guys. Honestly, I got the evidence right here. I'm looking at it. And
it's in the media, so they can't.
It's in the media, but that's another story that's coming up. And pretty much what ended up happening after that whole fiasco was we got a bunch of corrupt members of the board, and I use that. I don't hope you guys know me. I'm very cautious with my words. These are very corrupt individuals. They were running the party into the ground. They were fleecing old people that were donating to this party, which is ridiculous. And so Samrat and I, we put our foot down, and we thankfully, with the help of Fred, we removed those people. We removed a bunch of people, including the lawyer for the party agent. Now, because there was a double standard that he was applying as well. Now, a story's just come out. The story shows that we've got a situation with Fred Nile's party again, which is imploding. This time, we've got problems with more money going to party funds being used for people's benefits, including Fred Nile's wife, Mrs. Nile. Now, look, it pains me to say this. Complete transparency, I know Mrs. Nile. She's a lovely lady. She really is. But nepotism was one of the things we pulled them up on in the meeting. I warned them. I said, if you keep going down this path, the party's going to go down a very bad situation. So currently, Fred Nile's political party is facing the axe, not only because of what's happening in the Supreme Court, they're being sued by their own treasurer, Charles Knox, but they're also in a situation where, another thing I warned them about, their membership is dipping below 500 members, so they could be up for deregistration. For those of you that don't know, of course, you need 500 members to keep a party going in New South Wales. Now, why am I bringing this up? It's not because I like looking back. It's not because I like throwing stones. It's not good to air people's dirty laundry in the wind. It's because you guys are starting a party, and all three of us, we've seen successful... Actually, you know what? We've only seen unsuccessful parties. So we've got a very good basis and a very good image to run away from. Mm. Let me ask you very directly, because we've got two members of the A1 political party. What makes Australia One so different? How are you going to avoid all of these issues in the party that I know you're familiar with because you've seen it in the past in other parties? How are you going to avoid this? Nepotism, illegal transfers, misuse of party funds. What can you guys offer that?
Every single director of our company has to have done a company director's course. So they have to know and will know their liability legally to the people that are actually, to the members who are actually paying the money. It's like government. Government doesn't make money, government takes money. And effectively that's what a party does too. They take fees. So they have to be accountable for those fees that they take. So each director has to have done a company director's course. They will be legally liable for every single decision. Everything has to be, like most parties, catalogued as every decision. The treasurer is the one that is responsible for the account. How $100,000 can go waylay into personal accounts? That means somebody has allowed and authorised for that transaction or those transactions to occur, and that person should be held to account. In our party, everything with regards to anything financial has to actually go through the interim executive. Every expense has to be accounted for. Everything has to be managed, and if the person who is running those accounts does all of this sort of stuff, rather than, you've had money transferred, then that person is going to be held legally liable for any transaction that they have done, rather than, the general thing. Everyone's got a legal responsibility because they've done that course to actually know how they're going to be held to account.
Okay. Well, the new board, we made sure, once we got rid of the old board, the new board, we made a condition that they all go through that training, and which ended up happening.
Okay. And they still did it. Is this 100,000 after that?
Yes, more recently. And look, these are the tough questions that every party should be asking them. People are fed up. People aren't stupid. They can see what's going on. In fact, there was one illegal payment before this whole fiasco, $147,000, which was claimed as staff wages for the 2015 election. This particular payment it baffled a lot of people and the board. And once they removed the board, the new board, which was reduced in 30 years in terms of age, because the old board was really old, the new board ended up having similar situations. So, I mean, these questions are, I mean, I don't know how you solve this, I'll be honest with you. I think it doesn't take much to know there's a problem.
Auditing? Because obviously we've got accountants that are going to be auditing, and I think we're deciding whether it's quarterly. They're going to be auditing the accounts on a quarterly basis. Beyond that...
What we're doing is we're going to be applying the same rules to the parties we apply to business and government. Specifically, one of them is, again, it's one of our policies, will be revealing in real time all expenditure. In real time. So we're going to do this as a party so the members can see it immediately.
Yep.
Then when we become the government, and we will, both at state and federal level, we will ensure that there is real-time revelation of every cent spent by government at both levels. Every cent in real time. And this is going to be very embarrassing for a lot of people. And you watch the expenditure stop very fast because people get busy, people get bored. And the fact that we paid $91 million to Hamas, a terrorist organisation, it's only $91 million. And they use that money to pay the families of suicide bombers. And Malcolm Turnbull, $444 million to the Great Barrier Reef Foundation, who didn't ask for it, didn't want it, didn't know what to do with it.
No tender.
And shortly after that, the Great Barrier Reef Foundation was a preferred partner with the Clinton Foundation. Now, of course, no money changed hands. There's no evidence of it, and it would be very wrong of me to say that this was a method of funneling taxpayers' money to some Cayman Island account. Now, that would be wrong to say, but something stinks.
Yeah.
So there's example, and just by the way, Silent Scott Morrison was the treasurer when that money was transferred. So, Scotty, you're still for the high jump, mate. We have long memories, we will not forget. But there are expenditures like that happen all the time, and the news cycle is so fast these days that people don't have time to keep up. But in real time, it'll be revealed, and I can guarantee you there'll be organisations set up in Australia to track this and highlight it and hold to account every Prime Minister, every Premier, every Treasurer, state and federal, to explain why we spent so much money on this particular issue. So again, in answer to your question, how do we guarantee against it? Transparency, absolute transparency. And what we do at the party level, we're going to do it in the governmental level.
Excellent. No, I think that's what people want to hear. I mean, in this age of technology, I think that's become a real virtue, transparency, because people have had such a gut full of endless wars, of their money being spent on like a new statue that they don't need. Very frustrating to see these kind of things come out, and it doesn't, people trust the media often more than politicians. That's shocking. So look, I wish you all the best, Fred. I wish you all the best, Christian Democrat Party. I did my job last year and I left it to give the border an opportunity. In my books, you failed. I think that the Christian Democrat Party has seen the end of it. It had a good run. Don't make it difficult. Just finish the job, Fred. You've done a good job. You still have my utmost respect.
Sorry, I must ask.
Sure.
Is this not coming out during the AGMs? Because every year, with regards to parties, this should actually be coming out to all of the members. And the members should actually be holding the executive to account. Now, in our party, we do, okay? That's the process, because we've learned from the experience of other parties.
Yep.
But I'm just asking, do they not have a system where the members cannot turn around and say, hang on, what are you doing with my money?
No. This is the reality. So Samrat and I guess I'm telling the story now, we made our first attempt on the 1st of June last year, where we basically we said, we want to dissolve this board, these are the reasons why. How was it met? Ross Clifford shut it down. He said, no, this is not permitted. You're out of order. It was perfectly in order. You just had to read the Constitution. And we had the numbers to vote them out, and they stormed out of the room because they knew what it meant. And we tried again in August. I presented very cordially to the board of 13 members, which is insane for a party of 500, if that's the true number. I presented these grievances to them, 11, and basically the board didn't pass a motion to dissolve the board. They passed a motion to get an external investigation, which affirmed a lot of the things we brought out, but they didn't pass a movement to motion to actually dissolve the board or the executive. And when we presented, because we didn't present this information completely to the members in an annual general meeting, we decided to remove the board on a credibility basis. Their funding was down by over $250,000 since the last election rounds. In terms of votes, plummeted. When you've got a situation, and this is news, when you've got a situation where an atheist in One Nation, Mark Latham, is doing more work for the greater religious groups in New South Wales by getting 20,000 respondents to his bill, and 68% of them saying that they agree with the bill. When you've got that happening and the Christian Democrat Party going through this drama, why do you think your votes are plummeting? That's just the reality. And we made that argument to the board in August last year. Nothing. We had 80 votes against us, 12 votes for us. We didn't convince a single person. We went in with 12 votes. And what does that show you? It shows you that the people that were left there were the most demagogue of people that had just lovely hearts. But the problem was loyalty to a fault to Fred Nile. Lovely man, but the board, they couldn't see that the board was corrupt. They couldn't see that they weren't performing. And so I would hope that Australia One, complete transparency, credit where credit's due. I would hope that Australia One allows for open debate, and I think it does. I mean, judging from some of the policies, like having primaries, I think you guys have got some really positive open debate environment, the free market of ideas going on. I think that's excellent. One of the things I've really been encouraged by looking at this bill is Mark's been very specific. And I think,
what way?
Well, with his terms, he actually defines them quite specifically. I'd encourage. Have you read the bill? And,
I think I only read a draft of the bill.
Okay, yeah, definitely check it out because I'd be curious your thoughts on it. But no, look, he's definitely done an excellent job compared to other bills that have been forward, which put broad terms and leave it to the judiciary to pretty much become legislators, which no one wants. But I did want to. You touched on a very good point about the states. Should Australia add more states? Now we've heard this problem put forward. I mean, one of the great things that I'm very jealous about the US system is over there they've got a situation where they've got a number of different states. When elections happen, it's very hard to thwart the election because you need to flip the right swing states. Otherwise, you're basically being ineffective. Riccardo, is there a case to be made for more states in Australia?
Absolutely. The first warning bell that we need more states is when, take Queensland for example. The southeast corner of Queensland, where the majority of the population lives, drives the whole state, and that southeast corner is run by insane green ideology. And so you've got Liberal and Labor falling over themselves, both trying to be slightly more green than the other. Trouble is you've got North Queensland, which has nothing in common with the southeast corner, and they are driven by this green ideology, and it's insane. So the North Queenslanders, and I lived and worked in North Queensland back in the 80s. It was my first posting to the 2nd 4th Battalion up in Laverick Barracks in Townsville. And they're a million miles away culturally and they're attitudinally to the southeast corner. That's a real frontier atmosphere up there. They've got a spine. They know what's right and wrong, and they're happy to vote that way. But they're being dragged unwillingly through this green nonsense. So they have a case to have another state called North Queensland, which is utterly independent from the remainder of Queensland, and they should be able to express their rights. Does that apply in other areas of the country? I believe it does. There should be more states added. Now, rationale, reasons why complicate it? Well, it doesn't complicate it. It actually helps. And there's two points I must make here. Firstly, with more states, it is harder then for a corrupt party, organisation, individual to control it. The Founding Fathers of the United States were very mindful of this, and so they built in to the system and intentional points of friction to make it hard to govern the US. And the reason it's hard, it compels compromise, it compels accommodation, sensible accommodation, and it makes it very hard for a lunatic or a demagogue or a party to then run the US, because it is so varied. They have 50 states, as we know. And so this would make it harder for a globalist agenda to penetrate. Because I can guarantee you, if North Queensland existed as a state, they wouldn't be doing what Comrade Dan is doing in Victoria. And the people would vote with their feet, and they'd move up to North Queensland and turn it into the most prosperous, wealthy, happiest place, freest place on the planet. So there's that aspect. And the last warning sign, if you don't believe me on those two issues, is the UN recently announced that it wants global governance from the local councils. So erode the states' rights, remove national sovereignty, and have the world governed by your local Lord Mayor. Now, that is nothing that anybody wants. The local councils have no role in the Constitution. They are a convenience. They are corporations established by the states to collect rates, fix roads, and collect rubbish. And they have exceeded their expectations. They've exceeded their mandate. They spend money like a drunken sailor, and I've been on the wallop with drunken sailors, and they can spend money. And the councils make these guys look absolutely sober. And so the globalists want to degrade national sovereignty, states' rights, and control the planet. And they're doing it. As I've mentioned once before in this program, the Mayor of Newcastle signed up, and her strategic plan in Newcastle is lifted straight out of the UN agenda, word for word. And there's nothing about jobs for people that work for that area. It's got nothing to do with mines, steel. It's about $500 million over 10 years to the universities to create a crisis centre. Now, how does that help Jacko and Narelle? It doesn't. So, is there a case for more states? Absolutely. We need more states. WA needs to be looked at very carefully. New South Wales needs to be looked at very, very carefully as well. And this will make it safer and freer for every Australian. Because this competitive federalism, which is a very sound idea, will help. Queensland, when it was doing well, attracted so many of the southerners up to Queensland and made it a boom state. And the other states were failing. And if you don't believe it can happen, have a look at the US experience. The state of New York, everybody is leaving. And the asinine mayor of New York is pleading for them to come back so he can rape their bank accounts. And they're not silly, they're smart. They just left and they're gone. They're heading off to Texas. Low tax, more freedom. And so what that does is this is feedback from the people who own the country to the crooked politicians who are trying to steal it from them. So we need more states, and there's very sound reasons for it.
We just had a break. What were we doing? Well, I could have easily edited it out so that no one saw what was going on, but Riccardo's alluded to this in the past. Rhiannon has MS. And we had to take a quick medication break because a number of different reasons, okay? And this is a reality, guys. What's your excuse? I just watched Riccardo carry his wife into another room for the medication reasons. And they're trying to run a party. They're running a party quite well right now. The numbers are exploding. They're homeschooling a couple kids. What's your excuse? Leave it in the comments. Where we left off, Riccardo, you were alluding to the rich getting exuberantly taxed, living in unlivable environments, yet the poor people can't leave. And that was where you were just picking up on that, Rhiannon, before you had to go do some medication.
So sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we've got the way that we have with A1. Every voice matters. So every supporter that is part of a branch or eventually membership, every member that is part of a branch, their voice can all be heard, and it's not like the current parties where they dictate from the top, and the only thing that you are is you are their bank account. That's it, and that that really gets me. And so that's why it's taken so long, because I'm very, very careful to make sure that everyone's voice is allowed to be heard. I mean, even with the current status, even though we're not a party at the moment, we haven't gone through all of that, we have what's called supporters forums, and every supporter is allowed to have their say, so long as it's not, using all of the wonderful adjectives I've learnt from Rick, or any of those sorts of things, or defamatory, or anything like that. They are allowed to turn around and say, this is my experience, or this is my opinion. And you never hear that with anyone else, any other party, any organisation. So while this organisation is not sort of a hold hands, sing kumbaya, it still allows for the little person to have their voice and to be allowed to have their say. And that's why I enjoy actually working with it. But that's also why the Constitution has taken so long to make sure accountability is at every single point, whether it's the interim branches and it's the elected presidents. They don't have universal right to turn around and say, well, my organisation or my branch is not going to be doing something. There's between 5 and 30 voices per branch, which means you're turning around and dictating for somebody else their voice. They've got the right to have an opinion, so let's bring them in and let them have their own opinion and have their rights. Rights are a big issue with me.
Absolutely.
So and that's why I apologise, but that's why it takes so long to actually get everything out and everything done correctly. Accountability at every point.
I think people are very excited to meet you guys. And do you guys have any events scheduled, or are you going to wait till next year for perhaps some COVID, less restrictions for COVID? Or
we've been considering doing some online work, and we certainly conduct online meetings with supporter groups. Any supporter group that wants to have a chat, they contact their state coordinator. I'll come on board, or Rhiannon will come on board, and we'll say our bit from sort of the federal leadership level. But what we're looking forward to is, once the restrictions are relaxed, it is certainly our intention to run A1 information nights. But more important than that, and this was always part of our plan, we get a lot of people who are very keen to assist, but they don't know how. They've never been in a leadership position. When I say, it's easy enough for me to say, organise a supporter group. And they look at me blankly and said, how? I've never done this before. And that's easily solved. I will be running leadership sessions, and this is the same sessions that I run for major corporates. And they pay pretty good coin. So what I'm saying is of value. The marketplace has spoken. But I'll be running that for a minimal cost, just to cover expenses basically, and maybe raise $1 or $2 for the party. But we'll be running leadership training sessions all around the country. So any supporter group that wants to spend half a day doing a leadership program, I'll be there, and I'll be crisscrossing the states and the entire nation for the rest of this time to continuing empowering individuals to step up, have the skills to take control of their country. Rather than just throwing the responsibility onto them. Because I've been in this game for 40 years. And so for me, it's second nature. And but for most others, it's not. But they have to start to step up, lead their household, lead their street, lead their community, lead their council, lead their state, lead their nation. And it's a training program. The kids that come on board early will live the experience of working in the party. And by the time they finish that, they'll be wonderfully prepared to contribute meaningfully to the country, whether they stay in A1 or not.
Yeah, and I mean, the amount of books I've seen come out from, especially former military people, but also non-military people like Jordan Peterson, has been phenomenal. There's certainly a market out there for this, because there's a need for that. People need to get their crap together.
Well, the good news is the publisher rang me up. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but The first print run is sold out, and they're doing a second print run as we speak.
Oh, really?
Should be out soon.
Okay.
And again, the marketplace has spoken. I don't have to persuade people to buy the book.
You're kidding.
The fact that it's there, we get calls all the time. Excuse me, we've tried all the bookshops; they're all out. And the publisher he's done his second print. He's doing a second print run. The ebook is coming out as well.
Yeah.
So those that don't want the object, they just want the file. That's coming too. Wow. So again, I love the marketplace. It has its limitations. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it's obviously of value.
Would you ever consider narrating?
I was actually about to say we're going to also look at getting an audio book as well for those people that prefer the audio.
I mean, Riccardo doesn't have that great a voice, but if he did, I'd definitely be doing it.
Hello, my name's Riccardo. Hello, me.
I don't speak like that after just the...
It's very encouraging because word is getting out there.
Yeah.
People do want to take responsibility and they want the skills, they want to know how to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what this book's all about.
Beautiful. Well, thank you guys for your time. This has been very insightful and discussing some of the current events. These conversations have been doing incredibly well. It's a shame we didn't get to do a session last week for obvious reasons, but moving forward, we are still doing this show weekly, guys. Every Friday we release it. And I just wanted to thank everyone that subscribed. I think we added an additional 15 subscribers this last I think it was the last 2 weeks. A lot of people speaking with their money. That's great. That's what I want to see. There's a deadline. End of this year, I'll be deciding whether these conversations continue and also the thin ice conversations. So if you like them, if you want them to stay, please vote with your money. But thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.